Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone tuning in from Namibia. It's wonderful to have the opportunity to present to you today. As Aisha mentioned, my name's Ruan, and I'm joined by the incredibly talented Bug Fawcett that will be illustrating my talk today. So I'm a passionate educator, a classically trained scientist and teacher, mathematics, pure maths, as we say in South Africa. And I understand exactly how excited you all are not to be in the classroom and listening to something else other than the rowdiness of the kids. But it's absolutely wonderful to have you all here. Take a breather and learn something. So I'm not here to dictate or to tell you what to do in your classes. Every classroom, every teacher is as distinct as our fingerprints are. So I'm just going to share something that worked for me every time I had the privilege of standing in front of a classroom, whether that was with high school children or university lecture rooms or wherever. It was wonderful, and it always will be. I'm a firm believer that once a teacher, always a teacher. So I'm going to start my talk about 25,000 years ago with a little tale. Now we find ourselves in southern Namibia in the Hun Mountains, and around a small campfire, children are playing exactly like they would do today. The laughter and the noises indistinguishable from anywhere on the planet. The women of the group are looking on, and suddenly an elder grandmother starts telling a story. One of the spirit of the steenbok cooking on the fire. The children are all ears. Now, factually, there's absolutely no way of proving this happened 25,000 years ago, but we do know that 25,000 years ago, there were people in Namibia, modern humans. But we do know that something of the kind most probably happened. And what is important is to understand that this is where it all started. Storytelling around a campfire to guide the way from ignorance to understanding. Not at all dissimilar to what we are trying to do today. Now, I hope you've spotted the different characters in our story, the adults and children, or for our purposes, the teachers and the learners. And did you spot the golden thread? Well, it's probably different for all of us or not. And that is the magic of finding patterns and telling stories. One of the maxims of my life is a quote by the great American science writer, Michael Shermer. He says, humans are pattern-seeking, storytelling animals. And we are quite adept to telling stories about patterns, whether they exist or not. Now, we can equate this pattern-seeking to understanding our immediate environment, making sense of it all. I'm going to tell another story now, and listen carefully. We're walking on the dunes just outside what is today Walvis Bay. Yet again, 25,000 years ago. Now, on the dune, one of the men hunting notices a strange thing. It has small eyes that can look in every single direction. And it just caught a bug with a really extremely long tongue. Now, catching this strange creature, the man takes it back to the settlement to show the rest of the people. We can only imagine the stories that sprouted from this encounter. And most likely, it was something that would give us nightmares today. The tale of the small demon of the sands. Now, in all likelihood, this story would have been retold by the venerable grandmother on many occasions, and later be immortalized on the rock in the form of a cave painting. Now, I'm going to fast forward 25,000 years to today. If the same would happen to us now, we would know that not to capture it, not to pick it up, not to take it home, but we would be able to identify it using a common as muck field guide. or even your cell phone, if you're that inclined. And we would know that it's a desert chameleon, Camellia namaquensis. Now, to get to this point, a lot of water had to flow into the ocean. The Europeans had to die from the Great Plague. They went through the Renaissance. And about 233 years ago, a scrawny man by the name of Carl Linné created the foundations of modern day taxonomy by publishing the great work Systema Naturae in 1735. Now, if I start telling that story, it's so long, we would still be here by this time next year. But what are we going to do? What's the problem? What are we here for? You'll notice that I told two stories that are not too dissimilar. Firstly, in the beginning, we did not know what we were looking at. Our ancestors did not have the tools to find the answer, but created it then and there around the campfire. We, on the other hand, have the tools in the form of the guides or the cell phone or the internet. Now, although the chameleon was as real to our ancestors as it is today, the difference is how we portray that reality. Now, quoting the eminent British evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins in his book, The Magic of Reality, he states, reality is everything that exists. Now, that sounds straightforward, doesn't it? Well, actually, it isn't. And that's where the golden thread comes in, the magic of reality. Now, this straightforwardness that Dr. Dawkins is talking about of reality is what we are attempting to teach in the classroom. And creating a storyline that takes the abstract and challenging scientific concepts and adding a human touch, enabling the effective communication of these ideas. Now, remember that stories have the power to evoke emotion and create empathetic connections, and is achieved by incorporating personal anecdotes and fostering a deeper engagement, and therefore promoting a sense of shared experience. So not we were sitting around a campfire or the fire to cook the food, and now we're in a classroom. Now, I want you to remember and think back of listening, that feeling of listening to stories told by a guardian or a parent or a grandparent, or watching your favorite cartoon as a child. Remember the excitement? How you remembered all the character names and the storylines? That is where we're heading. I'm going to do another quote by Alexandra K. Trenfer. It's a meme floating around on the internet. I've never been able to find out who Alexandra is, but I love the quote. It says, "The best teachers are those who show you where to look, but don't tell you what to see." That's something important. Remember that. Now let's return to our chameleon. Now, the second important focal point is the use of language. Now, language evolved just like the reality of the chameleon. Think about science. Science tends to be boring because of the language we use. And we have this idea when we're young of scientists from Jurassic Park and Indiana Jones, very exciting life. And this is far from reality. I've spent many years in the genetics lab working with DNA, the alphabet used to write the story of the natural world, of everything extant and extent, of all living reality. Now that sounds impressive, but if you know genetics, it's mind-numbingly boring at times. But language, when used and if used correctly, can turn and make the extraordinarily boring into extraordinarily exciting. And therefore, DNA, instead of being a double helix molecule composed of 4 nucleotides that's kept together by hydrogen bonds, make it different. Reference it as the alphabet of life. It does not make it less true or not true. And we are not adulterating that reality at all. We're just embellishing it, making it a bit more exciting. Now back to our chameleon. If we take all we can construe from both scenarios, we have a tale told twice. On the one hand, we have a field guide, a basic line diagram with a bit of information about its environment. And although, and this is important, although it is accessible to all, it does go into detail that very few people are educated to create that sense of wonder and a deep understanding of the world we form part of. And more importantly, the impact that we have on that chameleon and its environment. And on the other hand, we have a story of wonder, something that is told to create awe or fear or whatever was needed at that given time. We can only create that magical sense of reality when we blend these two scenarios together. We are all, well, most of the audience are trained educators in whatever way, with a thorough background in science or any given related field. And we are the key to creating a narrative that will make all the difference in the world, and not even the world, your classroom. Now, storytelling serves as a vital bridge between formal science and the public, or us and the learners. And by harnessing the power of narratives, science educators can captivate, educate, inspire a broader audience. So you not only are you telling the story to the learners, but also to their guardians, their parents, because we all know, especially for primary school learners, everything that is said in the classroom is recounted back at home. Mommy, Mr. Slebush said this, Mr. Slebush said that. And more likely than not, they do it in a humorous way. And then the parents will remember it as well. So I'm going to take everything and I'm going to tell a last story, my last story. We found ourselves in Southern Africa, on the mighty dunes of the oldest desert in the world, the Namib. The desert might look devoid of life, but we know better. On the rocky ridges outside Walvis Bay, we find an animal that has evolved to specifically call this barren place home, a niche to be specific. The desert chameleon, Camellia namaquensis. Now that we've set the scene, we can go on with the actual biology, behavior, reproduction, thermoregulation, everything that makes this animal incredibly special. But we created a narrative that changes the way we teach a little bit. Now, in creating stories or narratives like this in the classroom, and stories that are worth telling and remembering, there's a few things that I did in the classroom, and I still do in my present job in creating wildlife documentaries. The use of local names, if you know it. If you don't, ask a learner, ask your grandparents, whoever, your parents, whatever. Now, why do we do this? We do this to capture the importance of cultural heritage, of the language used in a given environment. Secondly, tell any stories that might be associated with the animal. Now, this could be fiction, it could be reality, it couldn't be, it does not matter. You create a line, a connection, an anchor that the children can use to associate the boring facts with. It's much more fun if you have a good story. Then make use of vernacular. That's really, really important. We are blessed with having languages in Africa that have vast fields of vernacular. Make use of that. It's important. But stress the importance of using correct scientific language and vocabulary. Then, and this comes with age and yeah, comes with age, make as many connections as possible. This can only be done if we read a lot, and we read everything from fiction, drama, non-fiction, romance, philosophy, art, and history, etc. The great English writer Philip Pullman said that you can only fool around with words and concepts if you have the vocabulary to do so. And keeping in mind that although we are teaching science, if we want to create narratives that are more exciting, then, I mean, you need to know what a good romance story is all about, or a non-fiction book or a fiction book. So the main maxim of my life, the axiom that underlines everything: read, 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 and read some more. And then you create stories to inspire a sense of belonging that will enthrall any audience, not only the children in the classroom, but anyone you talk to. So I'm going to end off with a quote from one of my presenters. I call my presenter, it's not my presenter, but it's one of the programs that we produce. It's called Groen. You might have heard of it. I know it airs in Namibia. It's Dave Peppler, the eminent naturalist from Stellenbosch University. He's retired now. He's a brilliant presenter, and a good friend of mine. And we were filming in the Central African Republic. We're editing it now. It's a documentary on gorillas and forest elephants and just the vastness of the Congo basin. And he said the following. At the very end of the 13 episodes, he ended the show with these words: "I will fight for places like these all my life, and my weapon will be my words." I'm going to repeat that. I will fight for places like these all my life, and my weapon will be my words. If you think about it, words are all we as teachers have to make a real difference. So I've always been of the opinion, if that is true, then make every single word count. That's the end. And just a postscript, please watch some TV. It pays my salary. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Bug still going.
Thank you. Yes, very much, Ruan and Bug, for an absolutely phenomenal talk.
Yes, thank you very much, Ruan. That was great. Teachers, I'm going to turn the screen around now so that everyone can see you. And please do ask some questions. I just want to tell the audience something. I just want you to know that there was somebody drawing live as Ruan was speaking. So there was an artist drawing as Ruan was speaking, but I don't know if you know that.
No, that was not me. I'm not that. That was all Bug's work. She's brilliant. It was lovely watching her come to life.
Good afternoon, Ruan.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Lovely, thank you. And you?
We are good, and it was really nice listening to you. The illustrations were perfect. Now, I have a question, just one. You spoke about when storytelling we should use local names in the different binoculars. What if I have multicultural classroom? What do I do then? How do I bring in the different binoculars and so on? Thank you.
Lovely. So this is where lesson planning comes in wonderfully, and more homework than we can possibly imagine. As you know, my first school that I taught at was the kids were from all over Southern Africa, And I literally just did my homework and to understand who's in front of me, where they're from, and try to incorporate as much as was possible at that given time. It all boils down to homework and understanding and knowing where your learners are from. And if you know that, I was never afraid to ask. And I think that's one of the things that we forget as educators, that you can reverse the roles. You're allowed to do that. If I don't know, I mean, if I have a student from Lesotho, and I had a few, I mean, I've been to Lesotho once as a tourist. So I don't know what it's like there. I don't know what to, Aisha's laughing there. She was with me on that particular trip. But reverse the roles and ask, so that if they know or if they have an idea, then they can share it with the class. And it's a wonderful shared experience. Then everyone can join in and break the ice and tell stories that they might know or might not know. And then if you have time, which you never do as a teacher, you can do the research yourself. The internet is a wonderful tool. Almost everything is on there. So that's what I did. I just incorporated my history into my lesson plans to make it as accessible to every learner in front of me. I hope that answers your question.
Anyone else for a question? There's a question over there.
What were your personal experiences working with conservation and teaching? Some of the downfalls or some of the stumbling blocks you came across, and how did you approach them? And then some general advice for us as we head into this new year.
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really, really good question.
I know I asked many questions.
The first problem that we face in teaching natural sciences is that it is an incredibly broad field. And I know a very few, and that's why you are here, and that's why Julie's there with edu-conservation. Very, very few curricula around the world include thorough and deep understanding of conservation. And just looking at conservation, that is an incredibly broad field. So if you understand, I mean, if you get your leg around the actual work that you need to teach, and then you want to enrich that with more information from any given field, in particular, what you're asking now, conservation sciences, then you really need to be very specific about what you are handling and tackling in class. Don't go off on a tangent and start talking about elephant populations in the Kruger National Park or in the north in the Huanep with the desert elephants and stuff like that. Be specific. That's really, really important. You have to be specific. If you create a narrative like this or a lesson in the classroom, you have to be specific. So when you plan your lesson, I've found that is easiest when I planned mine, is be specific. Know what you're going to talk about, when you're going to talk about it, and why you are going to talk about it. How does it relate to what you actually need to teach in the classroom? And yet again, that's more work on your shoulders, but that's really, really important, because you don't want to, firstly, you do not want to create chaos and make the kids think about everything at once. You have to stay specific. You have to stay on point. So that's a lot of homework that you need to do. And this is wonderful where edu-conservation comes in, because it gives you that structure that is so needed to understand the basics of the field as vast as conservation, because it really is difficult to take the word, one single word, and then try to explain everything that it has to do, and combine that with the curriculum that we have, or you have, and the information that we need to teach the children. So this is my advice. Be specific, take the curriculum that you have, and then enrich it with very specific points, very specific ideas, so that you don't confuse the children or the learners. That's important. That's what I did. So it's yet again, it boils down to homework, boils down to doing a proper lesson plan. And if you do it once, then you basically have it for life. You can add on as new science comes in, new interesting things come in and whatnot. And then very importantly, lastly, you can, if you have that foundation, you have a proper lesson plan that you made, then you can add on. If you read something on BBC or you see something on Instagram that's really cool, just add it on and just build on that proper lesson plan. But that is the number one important rule. Create a proper lesson plan. And then you can add anything to it, but be specific and be concise with what you do. That's important.
Ruan, thank you very, very much for that. And thank you to Share Screen Africa. Does anyone from Share Screen want to say a few words before we close off?
Hi, good afternoon. It's wonderful to be with you. At Share Screen Africa, we are all about sharing knowledge and sharing the learning experience. So this afternoon, it's not about us, it's not about the Share Screen team, it's about our guest expert Ruan, and it's about our artist Buck Fawcett. So without them, this could not have happened. So we're super, super thankful for their contribution. Thank you very much. That was both science and art combined in a very, very understandable and great way. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Julie, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Julie, and to all the teachers there. Good luck. It's a wonderful job. It's hard. It's probably the hardest job in the world, and no one knows that. But enjoy it, and I mean, it's wonderful. It's absolutely, it gives me goosebumps every time I think about it. So enjoy. Julie, you're doing great. Bug, that was absolutely phenomenal. And the Share Screen team, you were on it. Thank you very much.